So yesterday, Donald Trump took a victory lap at Stephen Colbert's expense by posting this on Truth Social. Colbert has finally finished at CBS. Amazing that he lasted so long. No talent, no ratings, no life. He was like a dead person. You could take any person off the street and they would be better than this total jerk. Thank goodness he's finally gone. Geez, I'm surprised that Trump spared Sir Paul. I could easily imagine him writing, don't get me started on that Paul McCarthy either. A total no talent. People are saying the other Beatles even refused to perform with him. Can you believe that? Sorry, sir. Well, that's about as believable as anything else that he would write today. But today, Donald Trump will be shocked by our featured story. Indeed, the bleeder of the free world must be shocked that his avowed nemesis is back on late-night television doing what he does best less than 24 hours after this. Meanwhile, the president who parties with pedophiles, he just posted this genius bit of schoolyard bully AI slop.
Back to our final broadcast, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, Jagger, as you are about to see, Stephen Colbert somehow got out of that poorly imagined dumpster and was back last night in the host seat for a late-night broadcast that featured an incisive monologue, a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, a music director, and A-list guest you just have to see to believe. Okay, Jags, are we ready? Occupy Democrats is proud to take you from the Big Apple to the Floral City. That's right. Stephen Colbert was in the host seat last night on Only in Monroe. This is a great way to kick off the weekend. Check out these highlights from last night's big show in Monroe, the return of Stephen Colbert. That would be our featured story today.
Hello. Also welcome. It's time for another edition of Only in Monroe. I'm your guest, host, Stephen Colbert. Since I was last here in Monroe, Michigan, I spent 11 years as the primary host of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert on CBS, which came to an end last night. It's been an excruciating 23 hours without being on TV, so I am grateful to be able to be here on Monroe Community Media before they also get acquired by Paramount. I also want to thank my volunteer musical director and native Michigander and member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Jack White.
Hey.
Jack, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You got a lot of equipment over there. Left your wax cylinders at home?
Yeah.
Thanks, Jack. Looking forward to hearing some of your music, time permitting. It's time now for This is Monroe Now. Quick refresher, Monroe is located in beautiful southeast Michigan, where the River Raisin meets Breast Bay, making it the most enticing combination of raisin and breast since the dream I had about that sun-made lady. So, what's been happening in Monroe since I was last here? Well, according to local reports, the old McDonald's on La Pleasance Road has been demolished and will be replaced with a BP station, where you can now get your gas in regular, premium, and McFlurry. With so much happening here over the last 11 years, I wanted to check back in with the original hosts of Only in Monroe. Please welcome tonight's first guests, Michelle Bauman and Kaylani Ray-Rafko Wilson. Hit me, Jack. Thank you, Jack. Jack White, everybody. Best in the biz. Hey, everybody. I'm here with the inimitable Michelle Bauman and Kaylani Ray-Rafko Wilson. Ladies, thank you so much for having me guest host your show tonight.
Thank you. We're excited to have you back.
Okay. To Michigan and all of its lakes and tributaries.
To Michigan and all of its lakes and tributaries.
Right. Okay.
Well, you guys can do it together. You guys
do
can
it
do it together. Yeah, do it together.
All right, let's do it together.
2, 3.
I'm sorry.
Let's stop right
Did
there.
you add a suey?
I had to.
That was
Sure.
like suey. That's a pig call.
While we stop there, I'm scared a bunch of Sasquatches may storm the studio.
I know.
We have to take a break. It's been amazing to see
that
you
was
both
super.
again. If I still had a show, I would definitely let you guest host mine.
Wow, that
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I know Byron Allen. Would you guys like to guest host Comics Unleashed?
Sure. I
Do
don't know
that? Do you know that show?
No.
We'll be right back with more Only in Monroe. Jack, drop it like it's hot.
For one heart to carry on. You're way on top now.
If you're in Monroe, Michigan, and you want pizza from a place with my name that has nothing to do with me, it's available at Buscemi's Pizza and Subs at 1386 North Monroe Street. I've got nothing to do with it.
My next guest is a native of nearby Chelsea, Michigan. You know him from Terms of Endearment and Dumb and Dumber 2. Please welcome Jeff Daniels. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for being here.
Oh,
Good to see you again.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Love the digs.
Thanks very much.
Yep.
Have you ever seen Only in Monroe before?
No.
Okay.
And they called and they said there's this guy named Stephen Colbert who's branching off the Daily Show with Stewart, and he's got his own show, and they need a test guest. Would you be willing to just go over? And I said, and I had seen you on Stewart's show.
Yeah, on the Daily, yeah.
And was going, the guy's funny. Yeah, I'll go over. It wasn't the same. You had it right from the top.
I attacked you for being a
I
Hollywood
didn't
elite.
vote, and suddenly I'm a pariah in my own town. Yeah, it was a good gig.
Welcome. Okay, big shot Hollywood actor. Why do you choose to live in Michigan?
Honestly, it's home.
Okay.
I did a play once on Broadway
Yeah.
with Jim Gandolfini,
Yeah.
and we're eating something called Cafluti.
Cafluti, yeah, I know
and we're
Cafluti.
eating, and
Yeah.
it's month 4 of the run, and
Yep.
he's sitting over there, and it dropped, piece of it I was eating dropped on the floor, and he looked down, and I looked at him, and I went down, and I went, broke him.
Genevieve.
All right, without being too obvious, I speak words for a living, but I'm having real trouble conjuring adjectives for this next story. Fantastical, absurd, mind-melting. Remember in the early days of the war with Iran when President Trump publicly mused about, quote, someone from within taking over Iran's government after the Ayatollah and other officials were killed? Well, there's a new report from the New York Times that reveals that Trump and Israel apparently had a very specific someone in mind. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. Yes, that Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, the former Iranian president known for his virulent anti-Israel and anti-American views, who spent his tenure from 2005 to 2013 denying the Holocaust and fast-tracking Iran's nuclear program. The two things, by the way, that those two countries seem to have a big problem with. The man who was lampooned on Saturday Night Live after saying that there were no gay people in his country. That guy. That's the guy they thought should go back and run Iran. According to the New York Times, this story gets much better, by the way. On the very first day of the war, Israel conducted an airstrike on Ahmadinejad's home in an effort to free him from house arrest so that he could eventually be put into power. Now, a small aside here. If you're ever part of a plan to free me from house arrest so that I can take control of something, please don't authorize a strike on my home. Here's how the operation unraveled, according to the Times. Quote, the audacious plan developed by the Israelis and which Mr. Ahmadinejad had been consulted about quickly went awry, according to the U.S. officials who were briefed on it. Mr. Ahmadinejad was injured on the war's first day by an Israeli strike at his home in Tehran that had been designed to free him from house arrest, the American officials and an associate of Mr. Ahmadinejad said. He survived the strike, they said, but after the near miss, he became disillusioned with the regime change plan, end quote. After the near miss, he became disillusioned by the regime change plan. Are you kidding me? Of course he became disillusioned. They nearly killed him. Ahmadinejad has not been seen by the way, since, and his current condition is unknown. While this was reportedly a plan that was developed by the Israelis, whom Ahmadinejad spent much of his career railing against, the U.S., against whom Ahmadinejad spent much of his career railing against, signed off on it. Though the New York Times says it was a plan that, quote, even some of Mr. Trump's aides found implausible. In response to the reporting on the
other thing people tend to forget when these conversations happen is that gerrymandering has limits. There is this assumption that if politicians redraw enough maps, they somehow become invincible. That if they carve districts into bizarre shapes and shuffle voters around like pieces on a chessboard, they can simply engineer permanent power. History repeatedly shows that isn't how reality works. Gerrymandering can influence margins. It can create advantages. It can make races more difficult for one party or easier for another. But what it cannot always overcome is political momentum. It cannot always overcome public anger. And it definitely cannot overcome widespread dissatisfaction across large sections of the population. Because eventually, a reality starts punching through the lines on the map. Think about what happens when approval ratings collapse. Think about what happens when people are struggling financially. Think about what happens when voters start feeling like their day-to-day lives are getting worse rather than better. People stop caring about carefully designed political calculations. People who normally sit out elections suddenly start showing up. People who haven't voted in years suddenly decide that they are going to vote. People who say, I don't really follow politics, suddenly start paying attention. And that is where political strategists start getting nervous. Because if you create a district expecting to win by 5 points, and then voter turnout suddenly swings by 10 or 15 points because people are angry, all of your carefully designed plans begin falling apart. That's why waves happen in politics. Political waves don't ask permission. Political waves don't stop and check district maps. They just hit. And we've seen this before. We've seen elections where analysts spent months talking about how one side had structural advantages, how the maps favored them, how the demographics favored them, how the numbers looked safe. Then election day arrived and reality looked completely different. Because sometimes people are simply exhausted. Sometimes people are tired of hearing promises. Sometimes people are tired of chaos. Sometimes people are tired of feeling like things are getting more expensive while politicians stand in front of cameras pretending everything is wonderful. And when enough people reach that point at the same time, it creates a problem that no amount of district engineering can completely solve. Look at some of the issue numbers again. 28% approval on cost of living. That should immediately set off alarms for any administration. Because regardless of party affiliation, regardless of ideology, regardless of culture war debates or campaign slogans, people care deeply about their own economic situation. People notice grocery prices, people notice rent payments, people notice utility bills, people notice when they fill up their car, and suddenly the number on the gas pump feels ridiculous. And you can spend all day arguing over talking points, but when families sit around kitchen tables trying to figure out whether they can afford basic things, politics becomes very personal very quickly. And historically, that has not been kind to whoever is currently in power. Because voters may disagree on 1,000 different issues, but they generally agree on one thing. They want life to feel manageable. If life feels harder, somebody gets blamed. Fair or unfair, that's usually how it works. And the challenge for Republicans right now isn't simply that individual numbers look weak. The challenge is that weakness appears spread across multiple areas at once. Foreign policy numbers aren't strong. Economic numbers aren't strong. Cost of living numbers aren't strong. Decision-making numbers aren't strong. When weakness starts appearing across categories, strategists begin worrying about whether they're looking at isolated problems or broader